Back to another episode of Stand on Guard. This is our live coverage of Question Period from the House of Commons, live from Parliament Hill. Thanks for joining us again today. I'm here because I'm not at the Freedom Convoy trial. Can you believe they put that on hold again for another 2 weeks after this? Yeah, they met last Friday, and said they were going to have a 3-week recess. What is this costing these poor people who are being charged with these ridiculous offenses? It's going on and on and on. And the lawyer for Tamara Leach has said this has gone on longer than the Freedom Convoy itself, and it really is getting a little ridiculous. I have to say that this is costing a lot of money, not just to Tamara Leach and Christopher Barber, but the taxpayers to pay for the prosecution that can't even seem to know what the hell they're doing from 1 week to the next, from one day to the next. The prosecution there has been absolutely confused. And as far as I'm concerned, self-destructive. But it's a good thing for the Freedom Convoy, isn't it? But they certainly have been unable so far to show any reason to say that either Tamara or Chris were behind any sort of illegal activity. I haven't seen any evidence of it. Everything they've played, everything they've shown has Tamara and Chris talking about being obedient to the police, demonstrating peacefully, not disturbing the residents of Ottawa. So anyway, that's why I'm here. We're going to be covering the Freedom Convoy trial when it resumes later this month. Till then, I'm going to be continuing these daily question periods. Romps. I don't know what else to call them. Free-for-alls, smash 'em up derby. I don't know, because I am just sick at times hearing one line of defense from the Liberal government every day. Every day. All we hear is climate change, fighting climate change. It's like they are obsessed with this issue of nothing else to talk about. And distraction, detraction, it goes on and on. Anyway, let's get to the
Yet this prime minister has told them that they're asking for more than he can give. And after 8
see
years,
what's
we are
going
seeing
on.
veterans suffering in record numbers.
We got Blake
We need to
Richards.
recognize that veterans, particularly
Okay.
those with injuries,
Want to
are
make sure we
vulnerable
didn't
to the cost of
miss
living
anything while
crisis
I'm
brought
talking.
on by this government. The Veterans Food Bank in
But
Calgary
did you
reports
hear
demand for
our
their services has
environment and
doubled,
climate
and they
change
expect their shelves
guru
to be empty
yesterday,
by the end
otherwise
of the
known as
week.
a minister of the
Veterans
crown,
are suffering right
talk
now,
about how he's a
with more and
proud
more using
socialist?
food banks and homeless
A
shelters.
proud
And
socialist.
now
How
the cost
nice.
of
How
living
does that
crisis has
make
gotten so
any
bad that
liberals
there
left
are
in that party
serving
who aren't
members of the
proud
Canadian
socialists
Armed
feel?
Forces who
Well,
are
apparently
living
there's
in
no
their
room in
cars
that party
because they
anymore for
can't
people who
afford
believe
a
in free
place to
enterprise or
live.
for the
This
old
prime
style
minister is
liberals. I
just
think there are very,
not
very
worth the
few of them
cost.
left.
It's time
But
to bring
most
home a
liberals today
government
seem to
that
be
will
like Stephen
honor the
Guilbeault,
service and
which are
sacrifice of our
environmental
veterans, not
extremists who
just
used
on
to work for
Remembrance Week,
Greenpeace and get
but
arrested
every
for climbing
single
buildings.
day.
So this is absolute nonsense. And I'm sure you're as sick of this as I am. Anyway, almost time for the first question. I just thought I'd do a little preamble here before we got into the gist of this. And it bothers me that Justin Trudeau not only skips question period about 80% of the time, but when he's there, all he wants to do is talk about nonsense. And now he's got this coalition going with the Bloc. How are we ever going to have a parliamentary solution to the Liberal government, to the Trudeau government? He's got the NDP in one hand, he's got the Bloc Québécois, the separatists on the other hand. So socialists or separatists. He's got both of them sewn up, he's got both of them in his pocket. And this really, folks, is outrageous because we're being held ransom by socialists and separatists in this country. I really want to see something being shaken up in this House of Commons so we can have an election on an issue that matters to people. We can't afford 2 more years of Justin Trudeau. But the thing is, folks, I'm concerned, and I want to hear your comments on this today. Okay, I'm just making sure we're not going to miss any question period here. What I'm concerned about is that we're not going to have an election in 2 years, that Justin Trudeau is going to use the 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 incredible turmoil in the world, the divisions in the world, the wars, to create a situation, to create the mechanism where he can put the next election on hold indefinitely. I think that's what he wants to do. So you think he's worried about polling right now? 2 years away from the next election, if there is a next election. That's what we have to be wary of, because this is a prime minister who is completely amoral and who doesn't care. And he cares only about retaining his grip on power within his party, within his caucus, and on the country. And I think we're in serious trouble. Potentially, we could be looking at a Trudeau government that finds an excuse, finds the reason to put that next election on hold, perhaps indefinitely, because he saw him during the pandemic. You saw him during the pandemic, and you saw what he's capable of, invoking the Emergencies Act, invoking martial law to put down protests he doesn't agree with. He is going to be using the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, as a means, as a way of exploiting the situation so he can retain power. This is my prediction today. I feel this in my gut as I'm watching what's unfolding here, because he will do anything he has to do to retain power. He's an authoritarian, he's a dictator, and he wants to stay in charge of Canada. And so you see these great poll numbers. I know they're fantastic. Yeah, 94% in the latest 338 poll say majority government, 6% minority government for the Conservatives. That means 0% chance of the Liberals winning anything. So what does it mean? Well, any potential election is 2 years away, and you watch Trudeau exploit the situation in the world for his advantage. I'm gonna shut up for a few minutes and just until the question period formally begins. Thanks for joining me today, by the way. And let's like this broadcast, please, so we can keep doing it and we can beat the YouTube algorithm. Like it, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and support me if you want to. I appreciate support. I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket because independent journalism is the way to go at this point in time. We need voices of dissent and voices of truth out there. And that's what I aim to be. So thanks for listening. And I will be continuing to comment, but I'll try to shut up during the important parts. But when we've got blockheads spouting off about TVA, I'll probably shut them up.
And Israelis for the sake of humanity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, we cannot turn away from the humanitarian crisis unfolding. In Gaza, there are over 50,000 pregnant women without access to medical care. Over 100 women give birth every single day amidst the chaos. New Democrats from the beginning have called for a ceasefire, condemned Hamas's violence, and called for a release of all hostages. And now, as people who
bringing her
have
baby
nothing to
into
do
the
with
House of
Hamas's
Commons
violence are being
as a
killed,
prop?
we must center human
I've
rights,
seen it all.
international law, and human decency. C-sections are being performed without anesthetic. Imagine being pregnant with no medicine, no food, no water, no electricity. Women are miscarrying. Mothers and babies are dying daily amidst bombings and attacks. 4,000 children have been killed since the start of this siege. 4,000 kids. Mr. Speaker, how many more babies have to die before this government will call for a ceasefire?
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Once again, let me get myself in here. Once again, you can see that the speaker is starting late. He has no sense of timing. He has no sense of a clock. Question period is supposed to begin at 2:15 every day. He is routinely starting 10 to 15 minutes late. And of course, interrupting question period about every 6 speakers. I have never seen a more inept and at the same time more partisan speaker. And I think he gets under everybody's skin because he's just so annoying. Because all he wants to do is just shut people up, especially if they're not liberals. He wants those ministers up there. But so we're seeing a good crowd today. Thank you for, and please, why do so many of them have masks on? This is a question from John Kennedy. Well, you you have a famous namesake, John Kennedy. But why do they? Because they're paranoid about COVID-19, even though even though it is not any kind of crisis. There's no resurgence in COVID, but they are so brainwashed into the narrative that COVID is this all-encompassing corrosive disease that is killing everybody, that they run around with their mask on. I bet you she walks around Ottawa with her mask on and probably rides her bike, if she has one, with her mask on. This is how ludicrous and absurd this obsession with masking is, because we all know they don't prevent COVID. They do nothing to prevent COVID. All they do is cause you to breathe in your own carbon monoxide or dioxide and your own germs. So they're basically unhealthy, and they're basically completely stupid to wear when you're outside in fresh air. But they have amounted to a talisman, a magical symbol. People think they must ward off evil. They ward off the COVID-19 virus because science says so, except science doesn't say so. Politicians say so, and it's all garbage. Yeah.
That relies on both rigorous analysis and an acute sense of the possible. Today, graduate students from McGill's Max Bell School of Public Policy are on Parliament Hill to learn firsthand about government decision-making in a Westminster parliamentary system. They are accompanied by the program's founding director, Professor Christopher Reagan, one of Canada's most respected and influential economists. Through Professor Reagan's leadership, the Max Bell program has brought together academics and public policy practitioners in a full range of subject areas to create one of the country's leading faculties of public administration. I ask members to join me in welcoming Max Bell students to the nation's capital today.
So you can see the speaker is routinely late again for question period. This never used to happen this way. I used to sit there every day in the gallery watching question period, and it was always on time. And this speaker doesn't give a damn about time. He just likes to hear himself talk a lot. Here we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Bloc, they're not worth the cost. The Bloc Québécois voted in favor of increasing taxes on home heating throughout Canada, and they did so to save this Prime Minister's political career. So this is a new costly coalition made up of the Bloc and the Liberal Party, and the Minister of the Environment has confirmed that this is a coalition. He says there is a coalition in the House of Commons and that coalition includes the Bloc. The Bloc doesn't do anything for free, though. So will the Prime Minister tell us what he offered the Bloc Québécois so that they would keep him in power and support?
Excuse me. Is Justin Trudeau there
the
today?
Carbon tax.
I haven't seen it.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, 2 days in a row.
I offer to Quebecers what I offer all Canadians. That is the opportunity to grow in a greener, more prosperous future. Together, we are fighting climate change. There are three parties in this House of Commons fighting climate change. The Conservatives, though, they don't want to do anything to address climate change. The Conservatives don't understand that there can't be a plan for the economy if there isn't a plan to fight climate change. They go hand in hand, and we will work with all members in this House who want to fight against climate change.
He is doing nothing to affect
the Conservatives
climate
want to
change.
set us back to the Stone
He wants
Age.
to call it fight climate change. Go ahead, jerk. You're not fighting anything. You're not
the Honourable Leader of
affecting
the
anything.
Opposition. Mr. Speaker, he has just mixed up the Bloc Québécois and Quebecers. Those are not one and the same, because the Bloc Québécois has abandoned Quebecers. But the Prime Minister apparently thinks that the Bloc Québécois speaks for Quebecers. The Bloc Québécois wants to radically increase taxes on Quebecers, and the Bloc Québécois now wants to keep this Prime Minister in power. The Bloc Québécois supports the Prime Minister's inflationary deficits and his centralizing policies. So, The Minister for the Environment also admitted that there is a coalition which includes the Bloc. So once again, what did the Prime Minister offer the Bloc to get this coalition deal?
He offered a green future, which means money.
Mr. Speaker, approximately 500,000 Quebecers are still heating their homes with heating oil. All Quebec MPs should know, and that includes
what does that have to do
Bloc
with the
members,
question?
the Liberal Party members, and other. We should all understand that those who are spending money on home heating oil are spending more money, they're polluting more, and this mostly affects lower income Quebecers and Canadians. That's
Flailing
why
like a fish.
we are offering to replace home heating oil with heat pumps. We'll work with all provinces who want to deliver this program to people free of charge, especially for those living on lower incomes, because we know that to build a better world, we need to do so together.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. Panicking under pressure from MPs in a region where he's plummeting in the polls, he'd paused the tax for some people in some places, but his minister said that other people should have voted Liberal if they wanted the same break. Now the panicking Prime Minister is further dividing the country with the confirmation from his Environment Minister that he's now in a coalition with the Bloc, the Separatist Party. So we have a costly carbon tax coalition that includes the Separatists. What did he promise the Separatists to get them to sign on to keeping him in power for 2 more years?
Why isn't he asking about the proud socialist Stephen Gilmore? Should be bringing that up.
Only division in this country as to whether or not we should be doing everything we can
Mr.
to fight
Divider.
climate change is within the Conservative Party. The Canadians are unequivocal that we need to fight climate change and we need to support Canadians through
Nobody
that.
is saying
That's why
that.
our price on pollution returns hundreds
It's not
of dollars
pollution.
every 3 months to the average family
Prove it.
of 4 while fighting climate change and watching our curve bend faster over the past 2 years than the other G7 countries. We will continue to hold Canadians together as we fight climate change while Conservatives continue to bring us backwards.
And this half of it knows that nobody in Canada is going to bed worrying about climate change. And this idiot doesn't worry about it either.
His own Environment Commissioner confirmed he will not hit his own targets, and the Prime Minister has admitted that his carbon tax is not worth the cost for oil-heated homes. Now, he did that as to save his political hide, but his desperation went one step further this week when he relied on the Separatists to vote with him to quadruple the tax on home heating for everyone else in Canada. So the question is very clear. What did he promise the Separatists to get their support to save his political hide and quadruple his tax?
He's never going to give an answer to that, is he? What did he give? He keeps talking about the green future.
No matter how much the Conservatives try to deny it, every single day in this country, we get closer to never using coal to generate electricity again. And now, Mr. Speaker, we're choosing to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier, more expensive, and disproportionately relied
So you make it less expensive.
income Canadians. The Conservatives may try to make up all the stuff they like, but the reality is replacing home heating oil is good for Canadians when we put in heat pumps, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And your heat pumps don't work, and your heat pumps aren't free, and your heat pumps are going to be a cruel joke on anybody who gets one.
Speaker, after 8 years, he hasn't eliminated coal-fired electricity. He hasn't eliminated oil-powered heating in homes, and his carbon tax will not allow him to meet his own GHG targets, according to his Environment Commissioner. Now, that is the reality, that his carbon tax is not worth the cost. And that's why people, all 10 premiers, Conservative, Liberal, and NDP, are calling for him to take the tax off so Canadians will keep the heat on. Will he be fair to all Canadians, or will he sign on with the Separatists to divide our country some more?
He's already signed on for a green future. Greening meaning money.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Giving more money to Quebec in the
I'm
Bloc.
a little worried for the Leader of the Opposition. When he has to stoop to bringing up the separatist boogeyman to try and scare Canadians, he must be running out of material. The fact of the
get
matter
out
is,
of
Mr.
here.
Speaker, Canadians
You bloody
are afraid of
hypocrite.
climate change. They're afraid of
Are
the extreme
federalists
weather
or not,
effects. They're
swine?
afraid of the concerns we have
He
about a
doesn't
brighter
have a
future.
clue
What
what he
we
is.
are doing is fighting climate
There is
change
the
every
desperate
day
man.
while we build a stronger economy with greater careers, while we support Canadians every single day with the high costs of living. This is what we're delivering. He has no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for Canadians.
Colleagues, I'm going to ask colleagues to all honorable colleagues to please refrain from taking or making noises while one of our colleagues has the floor. It's important for us to hear the questions. It's important for us to hear the answers.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Prime Minister repeated the government's stance regarding asking Israel for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And this stance has been called for many countries and organizations across the world.
Okay, here we go.
But
so here we have the chief separatist
Prime Minister
joining
Netanyahu
us
is
here.
not
And look at
listening
this
to
guy now,
repeated
Mr.
calls for a
Conciliatory,
ceasefire,
because he's got
even
his
Anthony
green
Blinken's
future
calls.
from Justin
So
Trudeau.
Israel's attitude is truly deplorable. Would the Prime Minister agree that it's time to call for a ceasefire? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker,
Thank you for that
we are
thoughtful question
asking
from the
for a
bloc.
humanitarian pause. That would help get the hostages out of Israel, out of the Gaza Strip, as well as others who are citizens of other countries out of Gaza. And it would also allow for humanitarian aid to get to Gaza. We need, in order to get humanitarian help, to support that. We need to support a two-state solution. We need to put an end to all this conflict, because the images we're seeing on TV every night are heartbreaking to Canadians and to everyone in the world. And we need to continue to work for the peace and security.
So he loves that word pause. He wants another pause.
The state of Israel, in fact, has broken the trust that the international community had in them. The international community trusted them to
So now the
act
bloc is
reasonably
aligning
toward the
themselves
people of Gaza.
with the Palestinians.
Thousands of people have
formally
died
aligning themselves
needlessly. Israel is occupying Gaza, but it's gone on for a long time. So there needs to be a strong action by the international community. The international community needs to take action to request a ceasefire for international peace.
Why would you even take this man seriously?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, we are working with our partners around the world in order to protect civilians. We are working to restore peace and safety for all people of the region, and we will continue to work towards that. But as parliamentarians and as Canadians, Mr. Speaker, we need to be very worried about the divisiveness and hatred and fear-mongering that we're seeing in some parts of in Canada. We need to stand up to Islamophobia. We need to stand up to anti-Semitism. We need to stand up to all forms of hatred, because we need to remember who we are as Canadians.
You notice?
Corporate coalition may strike again today. We put forward a plan to help Canadians with their home heating bill, to help Canadians tackle the climate crisis, and make big oil and gas pay for it. Now, environmental organizations are on board, but climate delay liberals and climate deny conservatives will back the profits of big oil again. So how can the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party justify voting against this?
Hear, hear. Look at this clown. How could you take this buffoon seriously? He's been propping up the Trudeau government now for over a year. And he's got the gall to suggest It's a coalition between the Liberals and
The
Conservatives.
NDP voted with the Conservatives against one of the most successful measures Canada has ever seen in the fight against climate change. Putting a price on pollution is exactly how we've managed to bend the curve on our emissions faster than other G7 countries over the past 2 years.
Bullshit.
We are moving forward with global leadership on the fight against climate change. Seeing the NDP vote with the Conservatives against a price on pollution.
What garbage? Are you buying, people watching, are you buying less gas because of the carbon tax? No, you're just poorer. You still have to drive to work. You still have to use your car. It's not making any difference in greenhouse gas emissions. And besides, Canada produces 1.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a big farce. It's a big joke. And this clown Trudeau is probably smart enough to even know that. It's hard to believe that he has the wits to grasp anything, but he probably knows that. And Jugmeat probably knows that too.
Sir has literally missed every single target he set on emissions. Voici notre plan.
Here is our plan.
Does this guy own
We
more than one
want to
suit? I'd like
make
to know that.
Heating bills less expensive for all Canadians. We want to fight climate change, and we want big oil to pay more. Many organizations that work for the environment agree with this, but the Liberal Conservative CEO coalition will continue to protect big oil. How can the Prime Minister vote against our plan? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I know there are progressives across Canada who were deeply disappointed to see the NDP vote with the Conservatives against our most successful climate change fighting measure, the most successful one in the history of Canada, and that is carbon pricing, putting a price on pollution across Canada.
Most successful in impoverishing Canadians.
Change. This measure fights climate change. This measure helps us invest in renewable energy, and it also helps us put more money in the pockets of 8 of 10 families in provinces where carbon pricing applies. We will continue to fight climate change, and we hope the NDP will.
That's what a buffoon. Oh.
Breaking to see these two squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister was so disappointed in the NDP leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax. This, with 2 million Canadians, a record-smashing number going to a food bank. Will the Prime Minister create another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers so that Canadians can afford to eat?
Yes, that is crucial. Farmers need this. Watch my interview with Jerry Rich yesterday.
We know, Mr. Speaker, that farmers are always focused on being good stewards of the land, and we are working with them in investing, in supporting them in many different ways to ensure that we can continue to put good quality, affordable food on people's tables right across the country, and that's what we're going to continue to do, Mr. Speaker. Farmers and indeed Canadians from coast to coast to coast know that as we fight climate change, as we put more money in people's pockets every 3 months with hundreds of dollars with the pollution price return, we're going to continue to step up in building a strong economy for tomorrow, something the Conservatives simply don't understand.
He is cutting farmers off from fertilizer so they cannot produce crops.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is quadrupling his carbon tax on the farmers who make the food, quadrupling the tax on the truckers who ship the food, therefore quadrupling the tax on all who buy the food. Good news is there is a common sense Conservative bill that's passed through the House and in the Senate where the Prime Minister's senators are holding it up. Will the Prime Minister once again cave and allow another carve out on the carbon tax for farmers? Yes or no?
This is very important question because Trudeau is trying to destroy agriculture in this country.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Many people living in rural areas across the country, including many farmers, continue to be stuck heating their homes with home heating oil. It is dirtier, it is more expensive.
Answer the question,
it
you
is something
buffoon.
that is expensive to replace. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we are stepping up with measures that are going to deliver heat pumps to families right across the country, the 1.2 million households across this country, in every part of this country, relying on home heating oil, so we can help them fight climate change and save money at the same time. That's our plan. The Conservatives have no plan.
This man is a certifiable idiot. Maybe he's certifiably insane.
Our common sense plan is found in Bill C-234, which would give another carve out to farmers on the carbon tax. And the Prime Minister has claimed that he won't cave again. He says there will be no more carve outs. We're asking him to keep in mind there are 2 million people who have to go to the food bank every month because of his policies. Will he put his ego and pride aside and ask his Liberal senators to pass common sense bill C-324 to axe the tax and create a carbon tax carve out for our farmers?
So clearly Trudeau is going to screw the farmers now. He's not answering the question. He's all over the map. He's all over the place.
Climate change. They know the cost of extreme weather events, whether it be floods or fires or more intense storms. Farmers are worried about their future, worried about their kids' future, worried about the country's future. That's why we put forward a plan that is reducing our emissions and growing our economy at the same time while putting more money in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate
money
change,
in our
no
pockets.
plan for the future of the economy, no plan for future generations. We will continue to do what's necessary to support Canadians, including farmers.
This man is beyond help, beyond reason. He's not putting any money in your pocket.
Simple question. It's about the common sense Conservative bill to carve out farming from the carbon tax. But I understand why he feels he's in a bind, because his environment minister said, as long as I am environment minister, there will be no more exceptions to carbon pricing. That implies that he would resign if there was another carve out. Will the Prime Minister sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister and support our common sense bill?
Crazy carbon tax minister. Yes, that's the Guilbeault is. He's willing to sacrifice any Canadian on the altar of fighting climate change. Doesn't care if we freeze, doesn't care if we starve, doesn't care if we die. That's what Guilbeault and Trudeau are concerned about, obsessed about, is their climate change agenda, which of course is all fabrication.
Colleagues should know the character of honourable members, individual members. I hear an explanation from the Leader of the Opposition, and I will repeat that so that we can clarify the record. The Leader of the Opposition made a correction saying that he was referring to the policy and not the person.
Well, I'm referring to the person. Trudeau's nuts.
And I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for making that clarification, because otherwise that language would clearly be unparliamentary.
Get off your bloody chair.
Mr. Speaker, I think we'll all be waiting for a long list of corrections and factual errors from the Leader of the official opposition if we go down this road. The fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, for millions of Canadians who understand that climate change poses an existential threat to our country, to our well-being, to our economy, they need action. They expect a government with a plan. They expect a government to deliver on that plan, and that is exactly what we have been doing for 8 years. Meanwhile, the only plan the Conservatives put forward are cuts to services, cuts to program, cuts to rebates for Canadians, and yes, cuts to the most successful measure to reduce climate change emissions that this country has ever seen. When is he going to come forward with a real plan?
What a clown. How does he measure success? That more Canadians are poor?
To quadruple the carbon tax on our farmers when 2 million people are going to a food bank every month. So now the Minister of the Environment has threatened to resign if there are new carbon tax carve-outs. We have a common sense conservative bill that would carve out the carbon tax for farmers. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to pass it. Will the Prime Minister please just cave at least one more time and allow a carve-out on the carbon tax for our farmers? Yes or no?
Watch him just again. Listen, go. That's what you want. But it just shows you that.
Prime Minister.
Speaker, I won't use the word crazy, but I will say it is deeply irresponsible for the Conservative Party of Canada continue to deny that taking action against climate change is important, to continue to deny that climate change is a real threat to Canadians and to our economy. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we have put forward measures that both fight climate change and put more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families, and we're going to continue to fight climate change because the cost of inaction against climate change is far more than the cost of action.
Yeah, I'm seeing comments from people saying rest in peace farmers. Clearly Trudeau wants to screw farmers with this. He won't answer the question. He won't even talk about the issue that's being raised.
Missed every single target. He's on track to miss his 2030 targets, and Canada is ranked 58th out of 63 on climate action. Mr. Speaker, the question is about our farmers. There's a bill C-234, a common sense conservative bill to carve out farmers from the carbon tax. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to adopt this carve out. Will the Prime Minister stand up to his Environment Minister and stand up for farmers and let Bill C-234 pass and allow this carve out to go ahead?
You won't answer again. You want about climate change deniers. He is a completely amoral person.
It doesn't happen often, but every now and then I am a little bit envious of the position that the Leader of the Opposition finds himself in, of being able to criticize on the one hand that we aren't doing enough to fight climate change, and then on the other hand say that we need to stop everything we're doing to fight climate change. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are smarter than he takes them for. Canadians know the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to fight climate change at the same time.
This man
is exactly what we are doing, and until
this
he
man
puts forward a plan
is an
that is
existential threat.
responsible and real on fighting climate change and growing the economy, Canadians will continue to dismiss him.
Yeah, that's why you plummeted in the polls. Yeah, it's rhetoric like that. It's crap like that. It's rubbish like that that is destroying your party for good.
Honorable member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Oh, here's this chief separatist again.
The next few seconds will be very difficult. I'm going to quote Adil Sharkawi.
Oh, shut up. So you just witnessed 10 minutes, a 10-minute exchange between the Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre, and the so-called Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. Poilievre is trying to get a bill through the Senate that will give a reprieve to Canadian farmers on the carbon tax. Trudeau refused to even address the issue in the abstract, in the esoteric. He kept talking and yakking and yakking and yakking about climate and how much the carbon tax is doing to put money in your pocket. How crazy is this man? He kept yakking and yakking and yakking about this being successful. So clearly, the indication, the vibes from this halfwit is that he doesn't want to give farmers a reprieve from the carbon tax. He wants to destroy agriculture in Canada through the carbon tax and through an absence of fertilizer and through a host of regulations that are killing farmers in this country. That's what Trudeau wants to do. He is trying to destroy agriculture in this country, and he's doing a damn good job of it. That's about the only good job he's doing, but it's always destructive. And he is clearly after farmers, and this exchange today illustrates the depth of his animosity towards agriculture in Canada. And this man should be he should put a bag over his head when he's in the House of Commons or out of the House of Commons, because he is a national embarrassment. And have you noticed, by the way, how chummy this leader of the bloc is with Trudeau now? They just love each other.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's true that there are people saying unacceptable things around the world and here in Canada too. What we need to do in this place and throughout the country is to encourage people to listen, to be compassionate. We need to return to our basic values as Canadians. We need to have empathy and compassion for the suffering of our neighbors. Now, as for criminal prosecution and crimes, the police and relevant authorities will make those decisions, and I'm counting on them to make those decisions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This panicking Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. He'd recently announced that he would pause his carbon tax on heat for some people in some places where he's plummeting the polls and his caucus is revolting. He claims this is not regional, but his own rural affairs minister said that if people on the prairies want the same pause, they should elect more Liberals. Can he confirm whether he endorses these comments or whether he condemns them?
Watch him go again. He's going to call it climate change denier.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Perhaps the Conservatives think that phasing out coal was divisive because some parts of the country had already phased out coal, and it only targeted the parts of the country that still rely on coal to generate electricity. Mr. Speaker, we are united in our desire to fight climate change as Canadians. We are united in our desire to support Canadians who need it through into a better future. That's why banning and phasing out home heating oil by replacing them with heat pumps right across the country is an approach that will unite Canadians. The only division is amongst Conservatives who still think that climate change is fake.
That's right.
You are fake. And we are making no impression on climate change at all.
Stating falsehoods about our position will not distract from the original question. Here is the question. The Minister of Rural Development said that if people in the prairies wanted a pause on the carbon tax for home heat, they should elect more Liberals. Does the Prime Minister denounce these comments? Or does he agree with them?
Can he even say anything that's relevant to the question? Or he just blathers shit constantly?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, tens of thousands of people across the prairies are getting the chance to replace their home heating oil with carbon, with thermal pumps, with heat pumps, because we have put forward programs to help in that transition.
Oh, that's plastic.
As we pause the price
the
of
moron
pollution
just said carbon
in
pump.
the prairies who rely on home heating oil, tens of thousands of them. We are there for people in the prairies who want to save thousands of dollars a year, who want to get heat pumps, who want to fight climate change. Why aren't the Conservatives there for those people?
Heat pumps are not going to work on the prairies either, you half-wit. And he knows that. This is a cruel joke.
All Canadians. But this is really troubling. We thought that perhaps it was a gaffe when his Liberal Rural Affairs Minister said that the prairies would have to elect more Liberals if they wanted a pause. And if this really is just a fair policy that applies evenly across the country, then why would you have to elect more of any particular party in your region to benefit from it? So I'll just give him one last chance. If he can't answer it, we'll assume that he agrees.
One last chance.
Does he agree with his Rural Affairs Minister that if the prairies want a pause on the carbon tax paying, they have to elect more Liberals? Yes or no?
All right, so Trudeau has not answered the question straight today. Any
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
To any degree.
Speaker, because people in the prairies who heat with home heating oil already are benefiting from a pause on the price of carbon, on the carbon price. That's because, Mr. Speaker, this pause that we put in applies right across the country. So the tens of thousands of Canadians in rural Canada,
cynical,
in the prairies,
amoral
are going to be able to
politician.
benefit from the transition
Yeah,
to heat
piece
pumps.
of political
That is why,
baggage.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to step up, including in doubling the rural top-up on the carbon price rebate. We will continue to deliver for Canadians right across the country, and we will continue to be there for all Canadians, including women.
Oh, what a farce this is. What an absolute farce. He can't answer a question. And to suggest that he's putting money in your pocket?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister only divides to distract. That's all he ever does when he gets into trouble. He divides people along every possible battle line. He did that with the carbon tax carve-out for only some in a region where his support is plummeting and his caucus is revolting. And for 10 days, he refused to condemn the comments of his own Liberal minister who said this policy was applying based on how people voted. And now he signs on with the separatists to divide Canadians again. Will he, instead of dividing Canadians, reverse the policies that are driving them to the food bank?
Oh, no, he won't. Because he is out to destroy Canada.
Speaker,
there's an
we see the
agenda here.
Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2S LGBTQI+ kids who
What an idiot. Yeah, you are being divisive because you don't stand up for parental rights. You are a war. You are a liar. And they're standing up clapping for this bloody moron for saying he has no respect for Canada, no respect for Canadians, no respect for parents. Get off this crap, this bandwagon. You're standing up for trans kids when you say parents don't have a right to know what their kids are doing. You are an abomination. You are an absolute abomination. And this man would continue to remain in power for 2 years is a terrible foreboding for this country, because he is up to more, and the worst is yet to come with Justin Trudeau, and we know that the worst is yet to come. Oh, the speaker must be really upset over this.
I thank the honourable Whip for Opposition Leader Whip for helping out to get some more, and I ask all members, please, to exercise a restraint so that we can hear the next question. The honourable member from Burnaby South.
This is worth a story here.
People are struggling to find a home they can afford, and this federal government has the power, the land, and the resources to end the housing crisis. On one side, we've got the corporate-controlled Conservatives that want to sell off our public land to their rich investor friends that helps no one. But on the other side,
that must be you. You're a rich investor,
openly admitting
pretending to be all for the working class.
Public lands to build luxury homes. How can this prime minister justify using public lands to build homes that people can't afford?
How can you justify even standing up in the House of Commons and asking a question when you're in Trudeau's pocket?
We know Canadians are worried about paying their rent, finding an apartment, or buying a home. That's why we're working on affordable housing and housing affordability right across the country. It's why we put forward the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, which helps build more affordable apartments by cutting the GST on construction. Housing advocates and developers have described this move as a game changer that will get more affordable housing built. It's why it's essential that all members work with us.
Somebody just slipped in the script there. You notice that? Yeah.
The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona.
Every single Canadian deserves to have health care when they need it. Public, universally accessible health care. But the Conservative leader, Danielle Smith, just got caught trying to make
confusing provincial and federal politics here.
And more bureaucratic. She is not hiring more healthcare workers, not treating healthcare workers with respect, and leaving the door wide open for more privatization. Sound familiar? This is right out of the Conservative.
Yeah. And if you don't know that Canada has one of the worst healthcare systems in the world, where everybody has to travel to the States if you really need a serious operation. And people like this should just keep their mouths shut because we don't have a good, credible health system. It is broken and it's nonsense. For anyone to stand up and suggest somebody is endangering our blessed health system by trying to make it work better.
Parties who had raised a question of the relevance of questions in terms of to the administration of government or questions which would be directed to committee chairs. That will be coming shortly. But in the meantime, I'll ask all members to make sure that they do ask questions which are relevant. I see that the Right Honourable Prime Minister is on his feet to reply, so I will allow the Right Honourable Prime Minister to respond to this question.
Oh, you love this question.
Mr. Speaker, it is a relevant question because we have taken actions in the past to draw back transfers and claw back transfers to provinces that haven't been obeying the Canada Health Act, and we will continue to do that. So let me be clear, we will always defend Canada's access to health care and won't hesitate to use all available tools under the Canada Health Act to protect this right. We expect all provinces and territories to adhere to the Act when they make decisions regarding Canadians' access to health care. The Minister of Health will be closely reviewing the details.
He doesn't even know his own government policy. He's got to read it from a script.
When it comes to access to our healthcare system and access to pension supports, we will always stand with Canadians.
Yeah, somebody had to hand him the talking points because he doesn't even know his own bad policy.
Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the planet is burning, and 72% of Canadians are worried about climate change.
Oh,
sadly,
BS.
The leader of the opposition does not appear to be one of them. He stated that he will do nothing to reduce our emissions, nor work with the global community within the Paris Accord to protect
seriously worried about climate change, except idiots like you. And this,
in fact,
this
just
notion
like
that
Donald
people
Trump,
are quaking
the leader
in
of the
their boots
opposition will take Canada
is
out of the
rubbish.
Paris Accord. The federal government is
out.
committed to net zero and has invested over $120 billion in a greener future. Will the government stand for future generations,
wasted money?
Unlike the reckless conservatives with their...
No. What a bunch of... That's all they can talk about is climate change as like the only issue that resonates with them.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I want to thank the MP for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill for great questions on this important file.
Yeah.
It is shameful that the Conservative leader has no plan to address a crisis facing all of humanity. His emphasis on technology to fight climate change means nothing because he is somebody who has been opposing the development of offshore wind technology in Atlantic Canada.
Well, which is killing whales.
Plan that addresses affordability and the climate crisis.
Oh, it is amazing to me that he can get up and talk about nothing except climate change during the whole course of question period. This man is completely controlled. And there is no doubt. He is expounding and engineering and executing a foreign agenda for Canada. He is not concerned about Canada. Canada has null and no effect on the global carbon footprint.
Without glasses, I will not lose $54 million on an app that doesn't work.
Yeah. There's just so much corruption, so much scandal in this Liberal government.
This is a prime minister whose government is now under RCMP investigation for giving out contracts to firms that did absolutely no work. Now senior members of the bureaucracy are blowing the whistle and saying his top officials lied about it before committee. Will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police in this latest criminal investigation?
You know he won't
The Right
cooperate.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't help but wondering how many millions of dollars Canadians would have lost if they had followed the Leader of the Opposition's advice and bought Bitcoin so they could opt out of inflation.
Oh, nice try.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to serious matters, both the RCMP and CBSA's Professional Integrity Division are investigating. The CBSA has also launched an internal audit to look into contracting at the agency and has increased oversight processes when it comes to the contracting.
Look at the cattle behind him, nodding and smiling.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Oh.
Mr. Speaker, the former director of CBSA, our principal border authority, said that he felt incredibly threatened, those were his words, by the former president of the organization. And senior bureaucracy, members of the Prime Minister's bureaucracy, are to have lied, according to this testimony, in order to cover up this $54 million scandal.
That's all they ever do is lie.
Auditor General and RCMP investigation. Will the Prime Minister cooperate with the police? Yes or no?
Time to talk about climate change again, obviously. Good opportunity, Justin Boy.
Speaker, obviously the reports coming out are extremely concerning, and I know that the respective authorities will be taking this extremely seriously. We expect our professional public servants to always conduct themselves with utmost integrity, and I'm sure
just like
that
you
will continue to happen.
Oh, what a feeble excuse for a human being.
Well, the entire government only takes direction from a guy who has 2 convictions for breaking the law, Mr. Speaker. And in this case, it's not just $54 million. There's $11 million given to a two-person IT firm to do absolutely nothing. The same firm has gotten $60 million from this Liberal government since 2017 alone. The entire matter is under criminal investigation. So for a third time, will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police? Yes or no?
Walliams went up on his feet quite a bit
You can
today.
understand that I won't take overly seriously the accusations from an individual who was Minister of Elections when he was found to break elections law. Mr. Speaker, when we see matters of wrongdoing, we ensure that proper authorities are looking into it, and of course our government will always ensure full cooperation with investigating authorities.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister is a man of conviction. He's got 2 of them, Mr. Speaker.
That's a good line. Good line.
He actually doubled the amount of money spent on outside consultants after promising to bring it down. When we pressured him on this, he said, I know what I'll do. I'll pay $670,000 to another consulting firm to find out how we can spend less money on consulting firms. Here's some free common sense advice.
It is
will he take
atrocious.
It? Why not just stop spending on juicy contracts for his friends?
This government is so completely corrupt. It's honeycombed with corruption.
Prime Minister.
Speaker, of course, we need to ensure that we're getting the best value for funds spent in the public service, and the minister agrees and is looking into it. But Mr. Speaker, let's talk about being a person of conviction. I am convinced that we need to fight climate change. I am convinced that the only thing we can do
get climate
to build
change
a strong
in there.
economy for the future is protect the environment and fight climate change while putting more
all a
money
big
in
joke
people's
to this.
pockets.
That's
These
what
are my
makes you so mad,
convictions,
is that it's a
continue to be
joke to
consistent
them.
on them over the past 15 years I've been in politics. We look forward to hearing
15 years
what the
too
leader
long.
of the opposition believes him, because right now it sure ain't clear.
It is what makes you so furious with this idiot is that it's all a big joke to him. He know it's all a farce. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
Mr. Speaker, the concern
just a blockhead.
Copernicus
Yeah.
Observatory.
Yeah. Okay. We can shut you up for a minute. So you get this exchange here. He once again, Trudeau shows how corrupt this Liberal government is. It is completely obsessed with nothing but climate change, and it doesn't matter if it's breaking the law, if it's funneling money to its friends, if it's failing dismally with the economy, if it's censoring you and I, if it's stealing money from you and not putting money in your pocket, and it continually, habitually lies about what it's doing. And this man, you watch, you wait. He is going to exploit the current crisis in the world to stay on not only as leader of the Liberal Party, but as Prime Minister of Canada. We expect an election in 2 years because we think we're still living in a democracy. But watch and wait and find out what Justin Trudeau has up his sleeve now. He will use the crisis in the world to put off, to postpone, to avoid the next election. I predict that today.
The House, we know it's real, and we will fight it. The honourable member for Avignon, La Métis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal...
And of course, you know that no matter what Canada does to fight climate change, it will never be enough because we only produce 1.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So even if you believe that those emissions are responsible entirely for climate change, nothing Canada does or can do will make a bloody bit of difference.
Liberal Party made the choice to form a government that combats climate change. We know Canadians are concerned about this, and that we needed to take concrete steps to put a price on pollution, to invest in green technologies.
Just repeats that line ad nauseum.
Make the changes
price on pollution,
and to help Canadians
as if it means anything
for the steps they need to
take. And of course, it means
Unfortunately,
nothing.
The Bloc hasn't changed its stand. All they do is criticize, but the time has come for action. Quebecers and Canadians need to unite to combat climate change, and that's not what the Bloc's doing.
And this is just after he put the pause on the carbon tax for his friends in Atlantic Canada. He's fighting climate change.
Recording of a top Liberal government official reveals that the billion-dollar green fund the Prime Minister is running is not worth the cost or the corruption. Some extracts from that recording. It was free money, sponsorship level kind of giveaway. And I quote, since the Prime Minister learned of these allegations in March, he hasn't fired a single solitary person. This is $1 billion slush fund. Is he worried about firing the insiders because he doesn't want them to blow the whistle on this broader Liberal scandal?
You bet he does.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, earlier this year, ISED was made aware of allegations of mismanagement at SDTC. The Auditor General has now decided to conduct an audit of SDTC, and our government has been working closely with them on this and welcome the decision. In addition, SDTC has agreed to enable a thorough third-party review of the allegations regarding HR management.
Wow,
we're committed to ensuring
organizations
which receive federal funding adhere to the highest standards of governance.
What absolute BS coming out of his mouth.
Is $1 billion taxpayer-funded slush fund that top officials now say amounts to a sponsorship scandal kind of corruption. It says they were giving away free money. This at a time when a record-smashing 2 million people are forced to food banks every month, when 9 out of 10 people can't afford homes. How could the Prime Minister have thought it appropriate to blow $1 billion when Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves?
All Trudeau's capable of doing is blowing money.
To be perfectly clear, any allegation of wrongdoing in any government department must be fully investigated. There are established processes for situations such as these, and this is precisely why the Auditor General has made the decision to conduct an audit. This is a serious situation, and we are taking it with the seriousness with which it requires. Unfortunately, the Conservatives, as usual, are looking for
aren't taking climate change seriously.
We are going to continue to govern responsibly.
This moron doesn't take anything seriously. He's an insouciant SOB.
There's nothing cheap about losing $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. that's exactly why he's not worth the cost. He sees no problem throwing away $54 million on an ArriveCan app that didn't work and we didn't need and is now under criminal investigation. And now, 6 months after he learned of corruption, cronyism, and mismanagement in this billion-dollar fund, he has kept his hand-picked cronies in the position. Mr. Speaker, if he really thinks it's serious that this billion-dollar fund had so much corruption, why won't he fire the people running it?
Because they're his friend. That's why. We know that.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a country of rules and laws, and that's why we need to make sure that we are doing proper investigations and ensuring appropriate consequences for any people involved in wrongdoing. This is how a country of laws and rules functions. Unfortunately, Conservatives are still choosing to make cheap partisan points on very serious issues, and we're going to continue to take these issues seriously.
Here, here.
The honourable member from Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are rightly proud of those who've worn the uniform of the Canadian Forces and defended our rights and freedoms. However, the important contributions of Indigenous veterans haven't always been properly recognized. On the occasion of Indigenous Veterans Day, I'd like to ask the Prime Minister what the government is doing to ensure that the sacrifices of these brave men and women are appropriately recognized. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Charlottetown for his question and for his commitment to veterans. Although previous governments were not there for Indigenous communities were there to defend our rights and freedoms. And that's why it's so important to recognize their huge sacrifice. And that's why we're taking steps like creating a team that's dedicated to Indigenous issues. We will be recognizing their sacrifice like we did in the Netherlands earlier this year, lest we forget.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The United Kingdom's Foreign Office has given travel advice to its citizens, which reads the following. The risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely.
And we're having some trouble with our CPAC today. Sorry about that, folks. But I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this. I'm just going to see if I can switch. Well, no, we've CPAC has gone off the it's gone off the air, and there's not really much enough time to justify going on Parleview. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today. We had some great exchanges between, well, as good as they get, between Poilievre and Trudeau on three issues, largely the carving out of the carbon tax for farmers, and of course the ad scam. I was going to say ad scam. Sorry, the ArriveCan scandal, which resembles the ad scam scandal very much. And of course, Trudeau couldn't give a coherent answer to any of these things, so it's quite shocking. But as I said earlier, this is a prime minister who is almost gone rogue. He is in danger. He's on the ropes. His climate change agenda is threatened. His carbon tax is failing, and it's being opposed by numerous people, including all of the premiers in Canada. And he has succeeded in putting himself in an untenable position because he's a foregone conclusion that Trudeau cannot survive another election. The question is, will there be another election? And that's what I hope the answer to is going to be affirmative. But I don't know anymore because this is a desperate, desperate prime minister who is trying to subvert democracy every day. And you're seeing it, and the evidence is there. And I don't know if we're going to see the planned election in 2 years because this is a prime minister who is so amoral, who is so insouciant, who is so incredibly narcissistic and focused on his own desires rather than the country's, that he could well sidestep that next election. So keep watching. I'll be back again tomorrow with Thursday's question period. Thanks for being there today. Pray for this country. Pray for Canada because we are in a very difficult position with this prime minister who is out of control and runs a government that is out of control. Thanks for watching today. We'll be back tomorrow.